Nani vai embora, vai fugir Nani, procurou os olhos do adversário, parou, Nani, vê que tem Almeida, vê que tem João Pereira, fugiu João Pereira, vai cruzar, cruzamento, Ronaldo,
Hello and welcome to a special Christmas edition of the PortuGOAL Football Show. This is the podcast brought to you by the site www.portugal.net, the foremost English language site about Portuguese football you'll find on the net. Before anything else, let me introduce the lineup for tonight. I think we'll recognise him as soon as he opens his mouth. Those dulcet tones are unmistakable. Ben Shave, how's tricks?
I'm good, man. Is it really that strong an accent? I get told this by Portuguese people, but
you are London. You are London Cockney man.
I've even got the London beer, proper English lager out. There you go.
Hey, no sponsor, no advertising on this show, please. Okay, he may be a US citizen, but he's our Seleção expert extraordinaire, Nathan Motz, currently living in Germany. Nathan, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, Tom. Glad to be back on the show with you guys.
Okay, great to have you again. And on the other side of the Atlantic, we have three Canadians, but with surnames like Ferreira, Machado, and Souza. They're not fooling anybody. That's right, they're three Luso descendants. First of all, Victor Ferreira. How are you doing, Victor?
Good, Tom, and trust me about it, I'm as Portuguese as they come.
Okay, good stuff. Making his debut on the show, we have Simon de Souza, another FC Porto reporter. How are you doing, Simon?
Good, mate. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, no problem. And he's fast becoming a big favourite on this show, the one and only Orlando Machado. How are you doing, Orlando?
Hey, guys. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good here. Okay, like I said, this show is going to diverge a little bit from our normal format because it's the end of the year, it's Christmas time, and so we decided instead of talking about everything which is going on in Portuguese football, we're going to take a look back at 2012, take a look back at the highlights, what was good about Portuguese football, what wasn't so good, and also maybe take a little peek into 2013 and what we can expect. So I think if we ask most Portuguese football fans about what their highlight was in 2012, they'll probably reply Euro 2012. It was a fantastic tournament, and one man who witnessed Portugal's games in the flesh, the lucky bugger, is Nathan Motz, our PortuGOAL reporter. Nathan, if we cast our minds back to just before the tournament, of course, Portugal went into it having played some pretty dodgy friendlies, didn't look impressive at all. I especially remember the Turkey defeat. I think that was their last friendly before going into the tournament. They were in a group with Germany, the Netherlands and Denmark. I think it's safe to say that optimism wasn't really riding very high going into the tournament. You, I remember, were kind of bucking the trend, saying that you thought that Portugal would do very well. But were you surprised at exactly how well the Seleção performed?
Well, I think I would probably be lying to say that I wasn't surprised in any way. My hopes were very high going into the tournament, like you said. I did pick Portugal to go to the final before the tournament, and as it turned out, they were within a few penalties of getting to the final, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Having said that, I think witnessing how good they played, in particular against, I would say, the Netherlands, and just how they were. There was never any point in the tournament, at least I thought, where they were really outmatched in a game. Not even against Germany or Spain, the two games in which they lost. I think just really showed just that the high caliber of the team that we had. I was very disappointed, I have to say, about the kind of attitude of most fans leading up to the tournament. But I understand it at the same time. We played very poorly against Macedonia, and then the friendly just prior to the Turkey match, and then we lost against Turkey, even though we had really played well in that game. So I think a lot of people probably had good reason to have some concerns about the team. But when I look at the players that we brought to that tournament, I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. I mean, we have Cristiano Ronaldo. I know I go on and on about Ronaldo all the time, but I do it for a reason. He's a world-class talent. He's a talent that's not going to come by again for probably a long time in a country as small as Portugal is, and I think people really need to appreciate that. And so I always foot stomp that, but it's extremely important to remember that. With a player like him, even if he's not firing on all cylinders, even if he's not, just him being on the field gives us an edge that a lot of teams just don't have. But going into the tournament, I think we did have some standout performances too, though, that really maybe pushed us into that higher level. João Moutinho and Contral and Pepe all had massive tournaments. Even without them, I don't think we would have played as well as we did. So, looking at the group that we were in, I totally expected us to get out of it, only because I think we were a stronger team psychologically than say the Netherlands. I did expect Germany to beat us, and that's what happened. But looking at our other two opponents, I think we're just playing better than Denmark, and we just had a psychological edge on the Netherlands, and they they crashed and burned.
Yeah, just answer me this, Nathan. Then 5 minutes to go or 10 minutes to go against Denmark. Denmark equalise. At that point, it looks like Portugal are out of the tournament. Did at that stage, if you're honest with yourself, did you think it was curtains for Portugal?
No, I really didn't. I guess I'm the kind of fan that just has hope until the bitter end, I guess. But I really thought we had the players to pull it off. Even if we would have gotten a draw in that game, I still had hope that we could get the result that we needed against the Dutch. And looking back, if we would have drawn against Denmark and beaten the Dutch, we would have gone through anyway. So. So I had hope until the bitter end, I guess.
Yeah, okay. Very un-Portuguese of you, but your optimism was you're absolutely right to be optimistic, as it turned out. Ben, Nathan just touched on it a little bit there, but I'd like to ask you to cast your mind back to those 5 matches in the tournament. And in your opinion, who were the outstanding performers for Portugal? And also, just in general, what are your overriding memories of the tournament?
Yeah, I think Nathan's pretty much touched on the outstanding players. I thought João Moutinho in particular had a fantastic tournament. Just absolutely ran things in the midfield for Portugal. I think they wouldn't have got half as far if it wasn't without him. I think I agree on Ronaldo as well. He was getting a lot of flack, particularly in the English-speaking world, about some of his performances. But you look at the goals he scored against Holland, Czech Republic. He stepped up at the right time, if you like. He came up with the goods, and you can't really ask any more of your best players. I thought Rui Patricio in goal made the #1 spot his own. I thought a lot of the time he didn't have that much to do, but when he did have things to do, he was generally okay, except for against Denmark. The main moments for me, I guess, Varela's winner against Denmark would have to be the one that's kind of stands above everything else. And then also at the end, the ridiculous penalty thing with Bruno Alves and Nani, who's just kind of typified the Portuguese national team. If you could sum them up in one little episode, I think that would probably be it, a mixture of the sublime and the ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I think it's definitely a tournament that will live in the memories of all of us. It really turned out to be fantastic viewing from the point of view of Portuguese football fans. Orlando, you're someone who's pretty demanding when it comes to what you expect, both from your club and your country on the football pitch. Do you think that although Portugal did put in, I think what most people agree, it was a fantastic display, do you think maybe they should and perhaps they could and perhaps should have gone just that little bit further?
Tom, I personally think they did well. Their result was nothing to scoff at, and losing narrowly as Spain, the eventual winners, is an excellent job. But The question is, should they have done better? And I believe the answer to that is yes. Our qualifying record is pitiful, and we can barely make tournaments most of the time. And it's not that we don't have true world-class players or they can perform, because all those players, when they get to that big stage, do perform. Paul Bentu probably wears the same like tuxedo to every party, and the tactics are always the same. When you're playing the same formation and tactics all the time, it really came down to the players to actually improve the overall play. I don't think it was anything that Paul Bentu did. And in the international game, it's a little more complex. You need to adapt depending on the opponent. If it's I'm a big proponent of the 4-4-2, and he's always playing the 4-3-3, even against minnows and late on in tight games when we need a goal. Personally, I think that's incompetent. I think you have to switch up your format depending on how the game is going. And I know even with Cardozo being on fire at the moment, if he played for the national team and he played there up alone, he would even have trouble because he relies on his partner to give him the ball and to create some space for him. So I think it just makes it easier for the other teams to defensively mark out our wings. And with Nani and Ronaldo not being the greatest of crossers, having one target in the middle makes it even harder for them to be good. I appreciate this is counterintuitive, but we need to play with two good strikers, not great ones, to have awesome results and easily qualify for tournaments, and then probably even do better in them.
Mm-hmm. Well, it'd be interesting to see if something like that happens in the future. Okay, just to wrap up this little talk on Euro 2012, this section, I'd like to go back to Nathan, who, as I said at the start of the show, was there as the PortuGOAL reporter. Nathan, I'd just like to ask you, what do you think the atmosphere was like among the players, among the Portuguese press, among the Portuguese fans, which you bumped into while you were there? How did you sense that they were enjoying the whole thing?
Well, the Portuguese fans were pretty few in number at all the group games. I mean, when you think about the current economy and just the fact that Ukraine is so far away, there weren't too many Portuguese fans there. The ones that were there, I think, kind of had more of an attitude of we're kind of just glad to be here, and we're just going to kind of enjoy traveling to watch our team play. I don't know that there was really an attitude of expectation for them for Portugal to actually do anything. As far as the media goes, I had numerous conversations with members of the media and the press areas before the games and after, and the attitude was pretty much unanimous. Most people just didn't think Portugal had all the right tools to get to the next level. So I think that when we did get out of the group, it was a shock to most people. In particular, I would say representatives of the media from the UK were really negative as to our chances of progressing in the tournament. Even after the Denmark game, that they just saw too many flaws there. Especially, I think defensively. At that point, we had given up 3 goals and had scored 3 goals all against Denmark, but we just didn't look like we had the psychological constitution to complete the job, and they thought that since going into the game against the Netherlands at the end that we would falter. But in spite of the negative attitude, I mean, obviously we proved them wrong, I think, and I was happy about that. So by the time I was leaving Kharkiv at the end of the group stage, I had a much better attitude than at the beginning. So. And the fans were great, in terms of in the numbers that they were there to support the team. But the attitude was certainly one of shock when we did well. Nobody really expected us to do what we did. And if I had to pick a favorite moment, it would certainly be the night in Kharkiv when we beat the Netherlands. I think that was just the way that we did it. I mean, it was a dramatic game. It was a great game. There's a lot of chances on both sides. We were down in the beginning 1-0 after Van der Vaart scored the opening goal, and it was just dramatic circumstances for us to qualify for the next round. So that was my favorite moment.
Yeah, certainly that was a magnificent game. I must admit, I'm very jealous that you were in that tournament, that you were in that stadium to see perhaps one of Ronaldo's best performances ever in a Portuguese shirt. He scored two, didn't he? Hit the post twice, could have scored a load more. Amazing performance from Ronaldo that night. And very interesting there to hear you talking about the UK media downplaying Portugal's chances. When will they learn? Okay, well, I think that would do for Euro 2012 and the Seleção section. Now we're going to move on to club football. And the season 2011-2012 brought no surprises in terms of Portuguese champions, FC Porto, yet again. But even so, their coach, Vitor Pereira, was perhaps not a unanimous choice even at the end after lifting the title among the Porto fans themselves. This season, they've carried on looking in very good form. And I think Vitor Pereira is starting to win people round more and more. Victor, I would like to ask you, not just because your name is Victor, but because you're an FC Porto expert, has this year seen Vitor Pereira go on a steep learning curve and do a good job at it?
It definitely has. Last year was not so great for him. Rookie campaign, I guess you can say, settled the nerves that he had, but he didn't start off too well. Speaking with the media, there was a drastic decrease from AVB's skills to his, where he always ended up seeing a little too confident, cocky even at times, insulting. Whenever Jorge Jesus would throw him a little bone, he would always answer. This year, he certainly improved in that regard. On the pitch, his tactics and especially his substitutions were off quite a lot. This year, he's improved that a little bit. Using the same rotation of three players that you expect to come in, so the four being one of them. If he needs at the end of the game, he has no problems in putting in an extra center back to hold the result, which is all fine. That definitely shows a little bit of an improvement. And even with the results themselves, it's definitely showing. Last year in the, I believe it was in the Taça de Portugal, after being eliminated by Académica, the Porto fans were in revolt, pretty much. They were calling for his head. I was one of them. Definitely was not impressed at that time with one of the most mediocre games I've ever seen as a Porto fan. But we haven't seen much this year of that. He has been eliminated from the Taça de Portugal, but it was a tough game against Braga, and that's understandable. Doing well in the league, only second place by 3 points with the game in hand. In the next round of the Champions League, that fulfilled the Porto's objectives, and it's looking good to qualify for the next round even. And it looks like Porto are even taking the Taça de Liga seriously this year. So who knows? Pinto da Costa may get the last trophy that he needs to round out being able to win every single trophy possible. So Vitor Pereira has definitely improved. If he's looking like a world-class coach at this time, no. Is he looking like an over-average coach at this time, as compared to a mediocre one from last year? Yes.
Okay, Victor, just a one-word answer then, please, for this question. I asked you the same question in one of our pods a few months ago. Is Vitor Pereira the right man to be sitting in the FC Porto dugout at this moment? One word.
I'll say yes at this moment.
Okay.
Slowly improved, like I said. If you had asked me a couple months back near the beginning of the season, I would have said no. But I'm in favor of giving him his time right now.
Yeah. Okay. Be interesting to see what your opinion is in May if I ask the same question. Simon, you're another FC Porto expert, and I'd like to ask you a simple question.
Okay.
In the summer, FC Porto sold their best player, not only Porto's best player, but the best player in the Portuguese league without a doubt, Hulk. And yet, you could argue that Porto are looking stronger this season than they were last season. How so?
It's funny because on paper they're technically a weaker squad without Hulk. Like his individual skills are incredible. That being said, he obviously demands a lot of the ball, and he forces a lot of plays. Sometimes he gets a little predictable. So, that being said, when Hulk gets sold, the team, everyone always, they're feeling down. They're like, we just lost our best player. What's going to happen? The media, is speculating everything. So the players almost get a sense of like, we got to step up now. Like it's our turn to shine. So, Hulk not being on the squad anymore, like it's a lot of the plays aren't as predictable now. I mean, he is tremendous skill, but he, as I said, he does demand a lot of the ball. So I think everyone is stepped up and grown into VP. It was a tough learning curve, especially at the beginning part of last year, but I think they've grown into it. I think mainly what we have to credit here is Pinto da Costa bringing Lucho Gonzalez back in January. That really turned the squad around and headed us to a league victory last year. So I think Lucho coming back really turned the squad. Even Hulk had a better second half of the year when Lucho came back. So I think Lucho was the key there, really sparking the team when he came last January. And Hulk being sold, all the players feel that they have to step up and fill in his role. And I think that's why they're doing better.
Yeah, very interesting. Now you're singling out Lucho, of course. Maybe doesn't get mentioned quite so much as some of the other stars, Moutinho, of course, and Hulk when he was there, and James Rodriguez. But I think you made a good point there. Lucho is just a fantastically committed player, and he's a leader. And like you said, he really has seemed to triggered a bit of a renaissance in that team.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so Ben, moving on to slightly less happy memories of 2012. One of the most lamentable scenes, not only of 2012, but of really Portuguese football in recent history, was of course the incredible sight of União de Leiria walking out for a game with 8 men. So this is part of a very deep-rooted problem in Portugal. I know you're an expert on football finance in Portugal. Just remind people exactly what happened at that Leiria game, and in your opinion, is it something which kind of reached its lowest ebb in 2012, or will this continue and get worse?
Yeah, well, I think you chose the right word, lamentável, as you were about to say, lamentable in English. Yeah, an absolute disgrace what happened there. I mean, Leiria has been a bit of a problem for a few years now. They were caught up in Apito Dourado corruption case. They were relegated and got points taken off as well. So at the end of 2010-11 season, they were thrown out of the Estadio Magalhães Pessoa in Leiria, which is one of the biggest stadiums that was renovated for Euro 2004. They were thrown out of there for not paying the rent and for not keeping up with the payments needed to maintain the stadium. The local, the Câmara Municipal actually said that they brought nothing of value to the area. So they moved over about 12 kilometres away from Leiria to Marinha Grande. The players weren't paid for 4 or 5 months, 6 months, some of them went on strike. And it all kind of culminated with this relegation 6-pointer against Feirense, where, like you said, they only had 8 players. They actually held out for a while, but obviously ended up losing 8 players on the pitch. The result of it was they were relegated. Obviously, they finished bottom last season. They didn't apply for a license to play in the Liga de Honra, Portugal's second professional tier. They're now playing in the Segunda Divisão, which is the highest of the 2 regional leagues. So they're still going, and perhaps that's part of the problem, is that there's no real system of regulation for football clubs in Portugal. It's whatever you do, no matter how badly you run yourself, it's pretty much impossible for them to go under. I mean, it does happen, of course, but in the case of Leiria what's needed, and in the case of other clubs as well, you need a system that actually sort of proactively tries to prevent this stuff instead of just punishing clubs for when they inevitably experience problems. As for the wider point, I mean, I think football mirrors society basically, and you don't need to be a Nobel Prize winner to know that the Portuguese economy is in pretty bad shape right now, and it's only natural that that's going to filter out through to football as well. But then, Portuguese football doesn't help itself. The people that run the clubs, the people that run the leagues, the people that run the federations, and the government as well, they've all got their own agendas. They don't really cooperate with one another. There's a lot of infighting, a lot of bickering. And, as long as they continue to do this, it's going to be difficult. I think, there are things that could be done, steps that could be taken to make the game better. But as long as they continue to sling mud at one another rather than actually working together, I think we could see more of the same, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I have to agree with you there, unfortunately. Okay, moving on to a slightly more happier subject. Orlando. In the summer, it was a relatively quiet transfer summer period compared to other transfer periods in Portugal. That all changed on deadline day, and indeed actually just the few days after deadline day, when first of all Javi Garcia was sold from Benfica, and then Witsel and Hulk were both sold actually after the transfer deadline had finished in Western Europe, but the Russian transfer deadline, as it happens, it's a few days afterwards, and of course they both went to Zenit St. Petersburg. At the time, I remember Jorge Jesus was asked, who will be worse off for losing these top players? Would it be Porto? Would it be Benfica? And he replied, I'm not sure who would be worse off, but one thing I know is that Portuguese football itself will be worse off. Most people at the time thought that was fair comment. Now, 6 months down the line, you could argue that the Hulk, we were just talking with Simon about this earlier, his departure from Porto hasn't really made Porto weaker. You could argue it's actually made them stronger. And at Benfica as well, Javi Garcia, Witsel, two fantastic players last season, both key players. It seemed like they'd really suffer for losing them. But there have been positive aspects from their departures, haven't there?
Yeah. Well, I think there was a lot of doom and gloom around the transfers, and I wasn't one of them that felt that way at the time because I realized there was more depth there. Hulk was a great player with Porto. I just hated some of his bad habits, like diving and stuff. But the same was true for Javi. He's good in the air on offense and defense, but when it comes to actually defending in the middle of the pitch, he's a little slow, and he's a little slow to react when it comes to the defense. Witsel was the one I was really sad to see leave because I still think he's developing, and he wins a lot of balls in the midfield, and he's a pretty talented player. Not the greatest scorer or best defender for that matter, but he's a hard worker and he wins balls. So I was sad to see him go. In saying that, I always saw James and Varela shining as they have, and I'm not surprised that Porto has been excellent in transition. Javi I saw as a liability at times. So I think even with having Matic, who's really a box-to-box player, he's a much better DM overall than Javi was because he's faster, smarter, and he's really good as a deep-lying playmaker. And we wouldn't have seen Gomes or Enzo, who are the wild cards in the equation. And they're as good, if not better, than Witsel at times. Both for different reasons, and both are ball winners too. Would we have seen any of these folks get any prime time or play in both squads without the transfers or injuries? Of course not. All the credit has to go to Pinto da Costa, Luis Felipe Vieira, and also Salvador. They brought in talent that excites us all and don't get enough credit for it. It's not easy to turn over a whole squad in a few years' time, and they do it so well. But unless these managers are forced to play talent, we will never see them, and especially that includes Portuguese talent. And there's a whole bunch of them lying in Sporting's B team and Benfica's B team that I'd love to see. The fact is all these players have come through. Were there last year. Take Matic, for example. He was ready to go last year and got 0 playing time. Does it shock me that he's doing well? No. I think Matic is a fabulous player, and he's turning out to be a real wonder. Pinto da Costa at the moment is a little short on depth, but I guarantee you in the January window he'll answer that, and we can expect a good run-up with all the Clásicos with 2 strong teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, quite apart from the this good spin-off of some excellent young players stepping up and really making a name for themselves. Of course, they did make a hell of a lot of money as well. Those are the kind of transfer fees which are difficult to turn down. Okay, Simon, I'd like to go back to you now. If you cast your mind back over these last 12 months, maybe for people who perhaps aren't quite so up on Portuguese football, maybe don't follow it so closely, pick out 3 names, 3 up-and-coming players who you believe will, are destined for stardom and will really make a big name for themselves in the future.
Okay, I think one of the obvious ones, turning back to he's obviously young. He made the squad, but we knew he wasn't good.
Simon, could you just repeat that? You just cut out for a second there.
Oh, sorry about that. I was thinking Nelson Oliveira.
Okay.
He, turning back to Euro 2012, we knew he wasn't going to start, but huge potential. He was loaned out to Deportivo. I think he's kind of, their team is sitting dead last in Spain, so I don't think they're going to have too many bright spots, but the kid is skill. Unfortunately for him, Benfica have 3 very capable strikers, so obviously it was out because I don't think he was going to get a lot of playing time, so he'd be my first pick. My second, my bias kind of comes into play here a little bit. That's turning to FC Porto B squad. I've always liked Sergio Oliveira in the midfield. He was on the U20 squad that lost in 2011 to Brazil in the finals. He really creative, good touch and passing. I'm hoping he can turn into the next Moutinho. That's huge shoes to fill. So maybe once Moutinho gets sent off, I have a bad feeling in the summer. Once he gets sent off, maybe Sergio can step up and find a role there and develop into a future star one day. And my third pick, I would make a little bit of surprise. I don't think he's going to come to the mind of many people. He's not actually even that young. He's 24, maybe even 25 now, and that's Steven Vitória. He is from Canada, like myself. He went over maybe when he was 16, 17. Porto originally owned him. He got loaned out to some smaller clubs, and then finally they actually outright sold him to Estoril. Now, Estoril had a good season last year, coming up, promoted to First Division, and all of a sudden, 6th place. And all of a sudden, he's just caught a form. He's actually, I think, even put in 4 or 5 goals, some from the penalty spot, fair, but he just he's a late bloomer, but he's developed really well, and I think he's one of the best Portuguese center backs, not on one of the big 3 teams, and I think he has to be taken a serious look at by a big team to bring him in, because he has skill. He's a beast at the back. He's 6'5", and I think he could be a surprise player, and I think he needs to be taken seriously here.
Yeah, good call, very good call. I remember he, like you said, is a centre back, but he's a pretty free scoring centre back. I even remember last season coming up from Estoril. I think I'm not sure if he might have even got into double figures. He scored a lot of goals. And I think, like you say, I think he scored 4 or 5 this season. I remember seeing him score at the Alvalade against Sporting, for example. Very, very good player. Okay, just before we leave Portugal, I'm going to go back to Ben, and I'd like to ask you, Ben, quickly flag up anything else in 2012 in Portugal before we start looking at Portuguese players abroad. What caught your notice? What were the achievements which you think merit a mention, or any standout incidents?
I've got a little list. I was thinking about this morning over my coffee, and got a little list, so I'll just run through it in no particular order. Academica winning the Taça de Portugal, their first trophy since 1973. The rise of Eder, as an immigrant kid coming over to Portugal to Seleção's next number 9. Cardoso and João Tomás reaching 100 Liga goals for their careers. Sergio Conceição telling a whole press conference of journalists that they weren't listening to him properly and that they needed a cafe to wake themselves up. Braga proving that you can run yourself properly, you can turn a profit and still be competitive on the pitch. Moreirense proving that if you don't fire your coach after 2 bad results, you might actually get back to where you're going. He's been with them since they were in the 3rd tier. He's taken them all the way back up to the top flight. Passos de Ferreira, again, proving that you don't need money to put out a good side. I think they've probably been the best team to watch in the Liga so far this season. And their whole team, probably doesn't get paid as much as some of the top players. And finally, some old names from the past, Farense and Salgueiros, both top of their divisions at the moment in the lower leagues. They're rising from the ashes. It's been a good year.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Yeah, that's right. I'll just remind you, of course, if you want to pick up on some of these slightly lesser of the big stories, always go and visit www.portugal.net. Ben's normally got these kind of stories covered, and as you can see, he knows his stuff. And so now we're going to move outside Portugal, and of course, for many years now, Portuguese footballers have been strutting their stuff all over top teams in Europe, in the biggest leagues. Really doing the country proud. None more so, perhaps, than last season at Real Madrid. Victor, Jose Mourinho, he did what many people considered was an impossible job. Here, together with a lot of help from a certain Cristiano Ronaldo, Pep, and Fabio Coentrão, he led his Real Madrid team to the La Liga title against what many people reckon to be perhaps the best club side of all time, Barcelona. How big an achievement was that? How much of it is down to Mourinho and the other Portuguese there? And tell us what you think about that.
Well, it was huge. Barcelona is definitely, in my opinion, one of the top teams of all time. This current version, or Pep Guardiola's version at least, you're looking at a team that has arguably 3 of the 4 greatest players in the world, with Xavi, Messi, and Iniesta, and a coach that revitalized the game, or revolutionized the game, I should say, with this tiki-taka style of play that frankly wasn't seen on that scale beforehand. So Mourinho winning the league with Real Madrid was just huge. I believe they broke the goal-scoring record last year. Ronaldo had 60 goals, so he made a huge contribution as expected. Coentrão wasn't. He was decent at times. Never hit the heights that he did with Benfica, but was always a sturdy option, despite many Real fans not liking him as much as the Benfica fans did. Certainly after a bad display against Bayern Munich, he was almost banished from the team just by the supporters. Pep being an undisputed option at center back. Sturdy as always, controversial at times, like he's been known to be with his underhanded tactics on the pitch. Dirty at times, one would even say, but nevertheless still one of the best center backs in Europe right now. And unfortunately, another Portuguese on the team didn't make too much of a contribution, Ricardo Carvalho. Very sad to see him fall from grace, I guess you could say. He had that one bad injury, and it just seems to have knocked him out of the side, which is a disappointment, because I believe in his first years at Real Madrid, he was like turning back the clock. Really, we saw him play to the level that he did at Chelsea and at Porto even, but he's been knocked out of the side, as we know, not much of an option, and will probably be sold soon. Mourinho was probably the key to all of this. He was the man who finally figured out, after several times of trying, to beat Barcelona. Definitely saw Real Madrid for the first time go head-to-head with Barcelona in an all-out attack style of play, hit them on the counter-attack at times, get them in their weak spot, which is in set pieces, and that's all due to Mourinho's tactics, of course. A little bit of disappointment with this team in being knocked out by Bayern Munich in the Champions League semifinals. I really did think that they were going to hit the final that year, and what a story it would have been if Mourinho had beat Chelsea, his former side, en route to winning the Champions League. But unfortunately, fans weren't able to see that. Another Portuguese football fans were witness to another penalty elimination, just as they did in Euro 2012, and now it's not looking much better for him. Definitely down in the Liga, third, I believe, and the fans are certainly revolting. But
I'm just gonna cut in there, Vito, because we'll go on to talk about the current situation in a second. I just want to ask you quickly: do you think that Mourinho got or gets the credit he deserved for that achievement from football fans in general, analysts, pundits, and from especially the Real Madrid fans themselves? Do you think that they are perhaps a tad ungrateful about what he did for them last season?
outside of Spain, I think he does get the credit he deserves. In Spain, he does not. The Real Madrid fans just show him no love. Unfortunately, I am really confused as to why. Perhaps they don't agree with the tactics that he plays with sometimes, and not going on an all-out attack in that fluid Real Madrid style that we've seen in years past. And the media certainly hammers him down in Spain at any chance they can get. It's almost like how it was in Italy. They just crushed them over there, and he only eventually won them over with the Champions League title. It's probably going to take that to do the same in Spain, but don't know if he could do that this year. Certainly not looking like it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Nathan, talking precisely on that point, like we said, Mourinho is really at the top of the tree last season in Spain. It's not going nearly so well this season. What's gone wrong there?
Well, I think just like with many teams that have a lot of money, you start to, the board of directors gets to thinking maybe they know a little bit more than they do about their team. Maybe they want to buy certain players because they have a well-known or respected name or character, and don't really think about how those players are going to fit into the team. I think Madrid have done this in the past, and I think it's kind of coming back to get them now. I think they have a lot of players that are good at what they do, but I don't know that they're the right players for the right positions that Mourinho needs, and I think that's made Mourinho's job really, really difficult. Buying players like Modric Luka Modric from Tottenham this summer is all well and good, but if there isn't a defined role you can create for him so that he can benefit the team with those abilities, it doesn't matter. And I think Mourinho's being asked to do a really difficult job by taking this hodgepodge of really expensive players and make a coherent unit out of them. And I think we're starting to see the effects of that. On the field, if you want to quantify it, I think that the main problem has to be that they're struggling in the attack. They're still pretty strong defensively. I would argue that the goals they do allow are very untimely goals. But when I watch them play, the feeling that I get is I just have to describe it using the word they labor in attack. They're not incisive the way they were last year. They can't run the ball up the pitch and put it in the back of the net 1, 2, 3 just like that, like they were able to do last season. Instead, they're crossing it to and fro across the field, looking for an opening, kind of similar to the way the Barcelona style their attack, and they're really not suited for that kind of play. And they need things to be a little more dynamic and cut edge, and they're not playing that way this year. I think teams are figuring out that's what they thrive on, and so they're structuring their defenses to deal with that. It's actually very similar to how many teams try to thwart Portugal when they play. They park the bus and wait for those few moments when they're going to have possession so they can hit back on the counter. Jose Mourinho is going to have to figure that out very soon, because Madrid's patience at the upper level management level is not going to last very long.
Yeah, yeah, I think we all agree with that. Be quite surprising, I think, if Jose Mourinho is still the Real Madrid manager or coach this time next year. Okay, talking about Portuguese abroad who's struggling a little bit. Ben, going back to you, let's have a little chat about Nani. He had an excellent 2011-12 season, an excellent Euro. Looks set to really take on the mantle as Portugal's second golden boy, and another world-class talent to play alongside Ronaldo. Unfortunately, it's all gone a bit pear-shaped for him this season. What's gone wrong for Nani, and what's his next move? What's the best thing for him to get his career back onto track?
Yeah, it's a good question, and the statistics bear this out. It really has gone off the rails for him. Featured in just 11 games, I think playing a total of 700 minutes. So he's really fallen quite a way down the pecking order there at Man United. I mean, he has had a hamstring injury that kept him out for most of November, but he's there's no denying it. I think Ferguson has essentially either run out of patience with him or decided that in terms of tactics he doesn't really quite fit into what he wants to do anymore. And obviously, whichever one of those it is, it's a massive problem. And I think it was interesting. Orlando earlier was talking about, the problem with Paulo Bento in Portugal is that, the system is too basic. But for certain players, having a really rigidly defined system is absolutely perfect for them, because they know what their job is, they know what they have to do. And I think the way Ferguson tries to play with United is quite flexible. And I do get the sense that, in terms of although he's a very gifted player, I don't think Nani's the most intelligent footballer, if you know what I mean. So it could be that he struggles with that. And I think also, if Ferguson has run out of patience with him, if we can sit here talking about that, if we can see that, then Nani can obviously see that as well. He can obviously see there's a problem. He can obviously see that things aren't going the way he would want them to. And I think it is approaching the point now where he should be thinking about his next move, because I think it will be crucial. I think if you look at the way he plays, there are definitely teams out there that could do with a player like him. I was just thinking off the top of my head, a team like Malaga, I think he'd do he'd do really, really well there. Any number of teams in La Liga, Atletico Madrid, some Italian teams as well. I mean, wages are obviously going to be an issue. He's been on Man United money for a few years now, but I think if he wants what's best for his career, if he wants to really move on as a footballer, I think he might have to think about leaving Old Trafford. And obviously it's a big decision to make, but if it doesn't pick up for him in the second half of the season, I think it's something he's going to have to start thinking about, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, of course, we talking about a Portuguese winger who most people thought was destined for world stardom, and maybe hasn't quite lived up to it yet. Nani is the case. I think even more so, of course, Ricardo Quaresma, who, if you remember, when he broke into the sporting team in his teens, he was actually a teammate of Ronaldo. The two of them burst onto the scene at the same time, and everyone in Portugal thought, wow, look at these two players. This is the future of Portuguese soccer. And actually at the time, most people thought that Ricardo Quaresma was perhaps the one who would really go on to become the world superstar. Victor, you wrote a very good piece precisely about this for 442 recently. And Ricardo Quaresma, we just heard the news yesterday that he has been officially, his contract at Besiktas has been rescinded, so he's a free agent. What next for Ricardo Quaresma? And is there still time for him? This fantastic mercurial talent. It'd be a crying shame to see it go to waste. Is there still time for him to thrive somewhere?
Frankly, no. It's just looking that bad. Really, he's done at this point. He could, wherever he goes, he could definitely boost the team's talents a little bit, but to hit the heights that he hit while he was at Porto and even Sporting and even Besiktas in his first year there, it's probably not going to happen. You're looking at a player who, unless he is the star attraction of the team, does not thrive. And there's much proof to that happening. At Sporting, he was the wonder kid. All the eyes were on him. All the fans wanted to see him. He thrived. Barcelona, one player out of 11 playing. He was kind of lost in the shuffle. Went down. Porto, again, was the star player. Played well. As soon as he went to Inter Milan, went back down. So, I mean, it's almost a psychological thing. I even believe. Where he's going to go next, it's tough to say. You're looking at a player who still thinks, in my opinion, that he's too good to play in the Portuguese league at this time. So even though there are rumors of him going back to Porto, and there have even been rumors linking him to Sporting, I don't think it's going to happen. Even when he was at Besiktas after the initial spat that saw what we've come to see as a self-destruction at the team, he refused to admit that he would go back to the Portuguese league. He still thinks that he has something to give outside of Portugal, and he wants to explore those options. What team that's probably as good as the top 3 in Portugal that's going to give him an option like that? There probably isn't. Perhaps maybe a Liverpool or even like a Malaga or Atletico Madrid in Spain, maybe, but even those are a far cry. Probably see him going to Russia or a nation like that, to be honest. But who knows, really? All I can tell you for sure is that this guy's career is finished as we know it. I'd be very surprised to see him back in the Seleção unless Paulo Bento is extremely desperate for wingers, if for some reason Ronaldo and Nani go down at the same time. And I'd be very surprised at the same time to see him make headlines for a positive reason, not for a negative one, as there have been lately. Be very surprised to see him make headlines anymore positively. I just hope that he plays out the rest of his years in a steady manner, not making the same kind of negative news that he has in the past 6 months with arrests and presidents telling him he's going to end his career and rumors of him urinating in locker rooms. So, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's it's interesting. If we look at the careers of Ronaldo and Quaresma, it just really shows you that talent alone isn't enough to succeed in the game. Attitude is probably at least as important, perhaps even more important. Okay, just to finish off, I'm going to ask each panel member to imagine that we're recording this exact same show 12 months from now, looking back at 2013. I want you to answer the question, what was the standout moment in 2013? Ben?
Another Champions League title for Jose Mourinho.
Okay, short and sweet, that's how I like it. Simon?
Well, obviously no major tournaments, so nothing for the Seleção. Porto and Benfica, I think they'll have predictably good years, so I am going to go with just Sporting's complete, just falling apart, and dare I even say a bottom 7 finish.
I said 2013, not 2012, but there you go. Yeah, I suppose so. That's fair enough. Okay.
Well, it goes halfway into 2013, into May.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Okay, Orlando.
Yeah, I see a few interesting things happen. The classical battles are going to be great. There's going to be no ref involvement. It's going to be a good, clean, hard battles. And I think in the end, Porto's not going to have an answer for the car bulldozer, and he's going to win that penultimate match for Benfica and crown as champions at the Dragão. In Europe, I see Porto taking some good scalps and getting a really good result, and Benfica possibly even winning the Europa League. We'll say they will. Malgregu will have a mysterious injury that'll ensure Luizinho plays every week, and next year we'll be talking about the 25 million euro sale of Luizinho to some other team. As for Gadinho Lopes, I think he'll be ousted. Salvador will be punching above his weight, and they'll go to the last 16 of the Champions League next year. And for the national team, Elder helps us Juventus starts finally playing a 4-4-2, and everybody calls him a genius, and we qualify.
Wow, what a year it's going to be.
Yeah, great year.
Okay, Nathan, follow that.
Yeah, I think Ben got mine. I'm gonna second Jose Mourinho winning Real Madrid's 10th Champions League title, with Ronaldo being the leading scorer.
Yeah, I think there's a chance of that. Of course, we've got a fantastic tie to look forward to in the next round against Manchester United. All the talk, of course, will be about Ronaldo at Old Trafford. Be interesting to see the reception he gets there. Okay, Victor, what's your standout moment of 2013?
The most glorious and legendary feat in the history of Portuguese football. Sporting coming back to win the league title. No, it's not happening.
Oh, you had me going there. That was beautiful.
In response to Orlando, them's fighting words. I'll disagree and say that the highlight will be Porto winning the league title. And let's just throw in a quarterfinal appearance in the Champions League. How about that?
Okay.
Hitting the quarterfinals as well in the Europa League.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that will hopefully. That will, of course. I think it's quite only 2 Portuguese teams left in European competition. But I think, like we've mentioned on this show and previous shows, they're both in quite good shape. So it's going to be interesting to see how Porto and Benfica do. As for my standout moments in 2013, I think I'm going to give it to Braga, who are going to kind of crown this excellent rise as being one of the main teams in Portugal with a double trophy haul. Portuguese Cup winners and Taça de Liga winners. You heard it here first. Get down the bookies. Okay. Now, just to end the show, Orlando Machado, as well as being a great commentator on Portuguese football, has also been a fantastic help for us in getting this vodcast feature up and running. He's also producing some add-ons which are well worth watching. Orlando, tell us a little bit about your latest add-on feature. What's it all about?
Which one? The 11 Reasons?
Yep.
Well, basically, just look. I wanted to take a positive sort of look into the new year and a lot of the good things that hopefully will happen in that new year. As usual, I try to add a little comedy to it, to make it a little more digestible. But that's basically it. So definitely watch it. Okay.
Yep. We'll leave a link on this at the end of the show so you can see where you can go and watch that. And also, Orlando has insisted that we all take a crash course in dancing and singing. Would you believe it? And so that's what we've been doing the last few days, and the result is coming up. And so we'll end the show with a little performance that may surprise you. Just left for me to say thank you very much for watching this podcast or listening to it as a podcast. If you prefer to listen to it as a podcast, of course, just go to the site www.portugal.net and you can download it there. And on behalf of the whole PortuGOAL team, I'd like to wish you all a Feliz Natal and 2003 cheia de alegria. Até logo.
mais o nosso carinho.